Hello and welcome to the MetaGame with Oni Black Mage. Today I'll be giving some tips and tricks to help your hack and slash adventure The Witch in the Hundred Knight a bit more manageable. I'll be covering some tips to consider for your equipment and while exploring, and then talk about some tricks to help make the trickier parts of the campaign easier for you, as there are times along the game when the difficulty shifts dramatically. So let's get started. Regarding equipment, understand that poison will cure itself over time, but you lose gigacals at a faster rate when poisoned, so keep a good stock of antidotes on hand, even buying them from shops if needed. Now, don't worry about being stingy with your AP because garlic and the like are very common, so feel free to just burn through those. Finally, know that when your stomach stock is small in the beginning, save your bowel dumps and common upchucks, as they are pretty rare at first. But later in the game, your stomach stock will become a lot larger, and ironically, your bowel dumps and common upchucks will become more common drops too. Regarding facets, for certain facets, you actually still benefit from a facet's special abilities even if you don't have it equipped, like the increased anima drop rate of Marginal Gaze or the Shinobi's running endurance. If you want to change your facet, you have to do so at Metallia's house. Equip the Marginal Gaze as soon as you find it though, because you are going to need around 400 anima by the end of the game. Finally, raid all houses that have you at even or better odds. If you need to, it gauges that based on your highest level facet, so switch to that to increase the odds of your success. The only penalty for raiding is infamy and increased shop prices, which is kind of a trick because shops rarely have anything worth buying, not to mention you get so much money over the course of the game, and you actually need infamy for the end game. So just keep on raiding. Finally, regarding your loadout, consider leading with a magic staff, as homing projectiles that some of them have can come back and finish off for a combo. Next, like I mentioned, don't really buy weapons from shops, in fact almost never do, because drops out there are usually more frequent and better. It goes without saying that you should always equip your strongest weapons, and don't worry about mastering inferior ones. You're going to be switching out weapons very often in this game. Next, sell your unused equipment. That's really going to be the main source of your income. If you're exploring and you find a legendary weapon, run for the nearest pillar and leave the stage. That way you save it and there's not a risk of losing it should you ever get knocked out. Legendary weapons are pretty rare and they are very strong. Finally, there's a pair of equipment with very high resistances that are worth capturing for. First is for the harpies that appear near St. Dulce, as you'll get the rather handy Panties armor piece that has huge resistances to everything. Later in chapter 13 you'll see a similar harpy-like enemy called the White Rose Sakwa that has the white wedding dress as a drop, but you need to capture them to do so, and it's among the best armor in the game, so you're going to want to do it. Now when you're exploring, you use gigacals for everything, so in order to restore them, what you may want to consider doing is using grade to restore your gigacals first, then items, and then avoid consuming enemies except as a last resort, especially in the beginning when you don't have as much stomach stock. You're going to want to stay in a level as long as possible, especially if you check the bonuses and there's something you really want there. Next, switching form costs around 3 gigacals, so avoid doing that unless necessary. And when you do want to leave, use pillars to leave levels. Do not leave the levels at the entrance, as that does not reward XP or give you a bonus. Now while you're exploring, occasionally you're going to have to kill golems that drop keystones for switches. Understand that golems are immune to everything except bludgeoning type weapons. Careful though, as bludgeoning weapons can cause fear, and enemies can die from fear instantly, but if an enemy like a golem dies from fear, it will not drop a keystone. So either use weak attacks, so switch to a weaker weapon, or switch to a harder difficulty mode, or engage it first and rage it if that's a problem. Also along the campaign, you'll encounter many anti-magic rocks that you have to blow up. Understand that when you lock onto them, you'll probably note that they have levels. The reason why you may not be able to blow up a rock is because of its level. At least one of your forms has to be at least that level in order to destroy it, so you need to switch to an appropriately leveled facet in order to destroy a proper barrier rock. Early on in the campaign, you're probably going to notice circles on the ground, and you can't interact with them immediately as they're going to require a Tochka that you get in Story Act 2, Chapter 5, so don't worry about it for now. You're also eventually going to see range switches. Now range switches can be hit by a few ways. You can either hit them with a magical projectile which will home in on them, or the arrow Tochka. Remember that the arrow Tochka only homes in on targets after you've locked onto them, which means that you can curve them around obstacles after throwing. While you're running around, you will inevitably run into many traps. However, there are many that if you strike them before they explode, it'll actually disarm them. Understand there are also some traps that actually heal you. It goes without saying, but you're going to want to explore everywhere. There are black boxes containing the best items as well as essential upgrades scattered all throughout every single map, so you're going to want to scour especially for those black boxes. Finally, you will occasionally run across rare enemies that have a special name and a little red skull icon next to the name. They are going to be a lot tougher, but they drop enormous amounts of XP because of their toughness. Finally, in regards to the campaign, there's a broom that's a little bit north of the shop near Metallia's house that can actually change your game's difficulty at any time to easy or back again. Keep in mind, difficulty doesn't actually change the experience monsters give, just the damage they take and deal, so if you just want to enjoy the story, just play on easy. If a boss seems difficult, it may actually be your lack of usage of the dodges that slow down time and hit them when the defenses are down, especially later in the game. You will need to use that slowing down time of dodging, so get used to dodging. That is going to be the main strategy for many of your endgame bosses. Understand that most Tochikas don't have combat roles, but two that really do are the Fortress and Mini Knight type, and they are very handy for bosses. If you have two fortresses deployed at all times, once you discovered around Chapter 5, they draw aggro as well as continuously fire homing magic shots. They are going to be the crux for a lot of your late game grinding, and using a fortress with the Mini Knights make many bosses so much more manageable. Later on, about midway through the game, you're going to see around Act 2, Chapter 5, you need to go do a little bit of scavenger hunting. Understand that you can find a cockfighter that will appear as a green NPC next to the garden pillar in the Wudes forest. Make sure to weaken it a little and then use the capture Tochika to get it. Next, the 13-whiskered cat is actually behind Metallia's house in a black box. Those are the two of the tricky items to find. Speaking of tricks, the game actually tricks you with its titles. The good and normal ending are actually the bad ending, and the bad ending is actually the good ending, so go the distance. While you're going the distance, later on in Chapter 12, that's when the difficulty takes a huge spike and you're going to have to grind in order to even survive the levels, much less the bosses. And when you go there, the best place I find to grind is in the Ruins Catacombs, as it's a great way to grind simply by spamming your fortress and standing back and letting it collect XP for you. The oozes that appear there are a safe way to rake in hundreds of XP in a small area with very soft enemies, so it's a great way to just level up as much as you can. Now during this event, you're going to see a few new things on your bucket list, one of which is the hammer. Keep in mind this is not worth it, as you're actually going to find that same exact hammer as a random drop. Now as you're grinding, you may be wondering when to stop, but a good ballpark is roughly when you're strong enough to raid Metallia's house and gain that awesome sword that she has, which is going to be roughly around the upper 70s, maybe level 80s in level. You are going to be strong enough that time to start taking down all the bosses in the sudden boss rush you will be doing, and you're going to be equipped with the best sword in the game. So, with all this in mind, have fun at being a bad witch. So thanks for watching the metagame with me, Oni Black Mage, and happy battling. Thanks for watching. If this video helped you at all, please give a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. If you have a tip you'd like to share with others, do that too. Finally, for more tips and strategies for games of the future, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you on the next battlefield.